is just the most beautiful black. But also, because I actually held a black eagle on my wrist once at a falconry centre, and of course these talons here, they're almost like a long curved kitchen knife of a weapon. The eagle I was handling, his owner said if I hadn't been wearing the thick leather gauntlet, he could have punched those talons right through my hand and out the other side. Like all members of the eagle family, black eagle also has eyesight that's 8 times more powerful than ours. But what's most incredible about the black eagle is that the male and the female will hunt together, because a lot of their prey is made up of dassies or rock hyrax, which as soon as they see a threat, they disappear like that. So what they do is, while one black eagle acts as a decoy, distracting the dassies, while the other will sneak around and then bang, move in for the kill. And so with these guys around, you really would not want to be a dassie. And of course, with a ravenous chick to feed, the pair will have to hunt every day for 2 months. And of course, as you can see, they quite often nest on a cliff face. But another thing that's always amazed me about black eagles is how they fly, because quite often, because my mum lived in Africa for much of my childhood, where she lived in southern Africa, we got to go to the Drakensberg Mountains many times, and she got to see these birds quite often, and they'd just be soaring across the mountains. And it's all down to the fact that eagles use thermals, which are rising currents of warm air that come off ploughed field, big area of road, or even off cliff faces, that mean they don't have to flap their wings, they just spread their wings out and just soar high and high without wasting any energy. But yeah, with the powerful eyesight, the large beak, those ferocious talons, and of course the deadly teamwork, certainly wouldn't want to be the prey of a black eagle. Of course, here is much of their range in Africa. Now, the next animal I'm going to show you is probably Africa's most dangerous and unpredictable. It's not a carnivore, but don't let that fool you. It kills more people each year than all the predators put together. It is the hippo. The hippo, or hippopotamus, is the 3rd largest land mammal, and a fully grown male can grow to be the same size and weight as a London cab, has tusks that can be as long as my leg, and they are fast and very, very grumpy and unpredictable. And hippos live in large family pods of about 30 to probably even 45 or 50 animals. They're mostly made up of females and adolescent males and one dominant bull. But quite often, once the males reach breeding age, they're driven off by the family, from the family groups, by the dominant male, or they just decide to head off on their own. When I said about hippos being herbivores, that means they're animals that feed on plant matter, they are probably Africa's most dangerous animal, and they kill more people in Africa than lions and crocodiles put together. I mean, one thing is that, because while hippos eat plants, not humans, they don't like having people on their patch, and females can be very protective of their young. Of course, they spend much of the day submerged in water to try and keep cool. In fact, actually, here's one for your friends. The name hippopotamus actually translates as water horse. And of course, it's actually believed that Because hippos have all sorts of substances that they almost sweat out onto their skin, and it almost acts like sunblock. But if you ever are out in hippo territory, once it starts to get dark, they get more active and pretty soon come out of the water to feed, and that is the most dangerous time because you can't outrun a hippo. Like, they are way faster than human. Unless your name is Usain Bolt, you might have a chance. But because hippos are very, very dangerous and very unpredictable. If that hippo doesn't like you, then you're basically going to be dead. You're either going to have a fabulous time or you're going to be dead. But as you can see here, these hippos here fighting are actually when territorial males begin fighting. And of course, that's usually when the dominant male faces a challenger to his crown. And first the intimidation begins. It's mostly like basically puffing themselves up and trying to look as big as possible with deep snorts and growls. But if that doesn't work, they fight. And fights can go on for hours and can be to the death. But their forward-pointing tusks can stab right through protective blubber. And of course, they quite often engage in bloody battles with each other. And the victor can either take the already dominant male's pod, or if the male who's in charge of the pod wins, he keeps his right to mate with the females. Of course, very few animals in Africa will go up against hippos, like lions, hyenas, and even crocodiles will keep their distance from them. But then again, when you're that big, with teeth that ferocious and a foul temper, you would expect any animal to keep its distance from you. Of course, here is the hippo's range. Now, the next animal I'm going to show you is one of the most feared, but also an animal that has probably the worst reputation in all of Africa. It is the spotted hyena. Now, spotted hyenas have a filthy reputation as bone-crushing scavengers, when actually they aren't just scavengers. These animals are also intelligent, muscular pack predators that can weigh as much as me, an adult human. And they have probably the strongest bite of any mammal. They can bite with the strength of over 1,000 pounds, and they can bite through bone like my brother munching through a packet of chocolate hobnobs. And of course, in hyena society, it's the females that are in charge, and they live in large clans. And of course, while they are primarily scavengers, and a lot of their prey is either found dead already or more than likely stolen, they are predators, and they can work together to take down animals from antelope and even to things as big as zebra or wildebeest. And while they do look like mangy dogs, they're actually in their own group and not closely related to dogs at all. They're actually more closely related to cats, believe it or not. I mean, they just look like dogs. And a lot of the time, hyenas get their meals by stealing it from other predators like cheetahs, leopards, wild dogs, and even incredibly, they can even drive lions away from their prey. And of course, while hyenas have probably the most feared reputation in Africa, there's actually a place in Ethiopia called Harar Town where the hyenas there have been fed for centuries. In fact, it all began generations ago when the people of Harar Town fed the hyenas at night, hoping in return the hyenas would rid the town of evil spirits. And that tradition still goes on tonight. In fact, there's actually, of course, Hurrah Town can be no more than a stone's throw away from an active hyena den that can be very close to human habitation, and hyenas are actually encouraged to come into the city. And there's actually a man there called Yusuf who's been feeding the hyenas there for over 20 years, and his family for many generations before that. And you'd be sat just outside his house with the walls of the city about 15 or 20 metres behind you, and incredibly, when he wants to call the hyenas in, all he has to do is whistle, and he actually can even just stroke the hyenas as if they're great big puppies. And of course they come in to feed, and so it just proves that with a bit of mutual respect and understanding, people can live alongside a ferocious predator like a hyena. Of course, this is their range across Africa. Now for Africa's largest snake, it is the African rock python. The African rock python is the largest snake found in Africa, and a fully grown female can grow to be about 6 metres in length and weigh about 200 or 300 pounds, and they can tackle prey as big as antelope. Of course, as you can see, the skull of a python, and they have one row of teeth on the bottom jaw, but on the top jaw they have 2 rows. And they're all like needles, and they all point backwards towards the throat. So it means that once it's actually got a hold of prey, there is simply no way it's letting go. And while it's not a venomous snake, a bite from one would be extremely painful. But also, rock pythons have scales running along their upper lip that can actually detect warmth. Like they can pick up the moving muscles of their prey, so they have like heat vision. And like all snakes, they have a forked tongue that can pick up all kinds of different senses of taste and smell from the air. And judging by which side of the tongue picks up strongest scents, they go that way. Rock pythons mainly hunt from like a waterhole where they can lie in wait for their prey, which can be hours, days, weeks, or even months on end, just waiting for prey to come by. And the big ones can take on things as big as the antelope and possibly even wildebeest. And once their prey's got too close, the python lunges forward, grabs onto its prey, and then wraps coils of its body around the animal and will squeeze and squeeze. And if the animal breathes out, the python just clenches a little bit more, and every time the animal breathes out, it clenches more and more and more and more and more until eventually there's either no lung space left and the animal suffocates, or it could even burst the internal organs of its prey or stop its heart beating. And once it's dead, the python can feed, and because like all snakes, they swallow their prey in one go because they are unable to chew their food. So what they do is they can unhinge and dislocate the entire jaw and walk it across large prey, and they can swallow animals even bigger than their own head, which is a little bit grim, but very, very effective. And once they've eaten something like that, an animal as big as something like an antelope, they won't have to eat again for a year. I mean, they aren't people eaters. I mean, they don't hunt humans. I mean, but you can handle rock pythons. Like